Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a much-awaited moment. Sonam, thank you so much for being here. Such a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Devina, for having me here.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's no better way to wrap up the Fashion and Apparel Innovation Summit than to sit here and talk to you this evening. An absolute fashion icon, known globally, actually. It's not just an Indian name. Of course, a Bollywood superstar, mother, and businesswoman. So that's a lot of hats you're donning. Let's jump right into it because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff the audience wants to know about you and from you. To kickstart, Sonam, can you talk to us a little bit about how your journey and your kind of romance with fashion really began? How did it all start, and what were the biggest sources of inspiration to you along your way?
You know, being born in the film industry, you're so used to seeing beautiful people in and out of your house. And I feel films have such a big hand in dictating trends, especially in a country like India. So I feel that was one of the reasons that I got so much into film and fashion. Second was my mom was a model, and then she became a very successful fashion designer, and now she's a jewelry designer. And I grew up around Abu Sandeep, Tarun Tehliani, Anamika, and all these incredible fashion designers, and Anuradha Vakil, and they taught me a lot about textiles, international fashion, embroidery, cuts. And my mom, especially my mother, she was collecting old zari pieces and jamewars and purana zari ke saris. So I knew the difference between chanderi and silk sari, and so all those things were just ingrained in me since I was a young girl. And she also exposed me to a lot of international designers, and I don't only mean French and Italian designers. She exposed me to Japanese designers, and other Asian designers as well. So that world exposure, because her passion was also in fashion, and being a designer, she was also a retailer. So understanding that came from my mother.
Well, with such a diverse background and such a rich background, no wonder, of course, you are the fashion icon that you are
told me
today.
you grew up with Pia
Yeah,
Shivdasani, so her mother and my mother were partners. And so you do know that they were fashion designers, and now they do exports. So Anu auntie and Anu Shivdasani and my mother are cousins, and they started their brand Amaya together. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a small world. So, Sonam, given that you've been exposed to fashion from literally maybe childhood, birth, perhaps,
Yeah.
how have you seen the fashion scene in India evolve over the years? And what is the role that celebrity plays in this?
I feel what is amazing that's happening now in India is that there's a lot of pride in what is made in India. And I've been seeing it. I remember initially there was a lot of Western obsession in terms of whatever is made abroad. But then we realized that most things actually are embroidered and made in India that are exported abroad and maybe assembled there. And so that made in India, passion and that pride, I think, is what we've evolved into. At least I have. And as an actor who has a platform, whenever I get the opportunity to have a big stage where I can showcase Indian fashion, I try to do that because I realize the kind of impact that I have in terms of whatever I wear. So I remember the very first Cannes I went to, I wanted to wear my very dear friend Masaba's sari. And I wore that sari, and it was on the cover of Women's Wear Daily. And that international exposure was great. So whenever I get a chance, I try to wear an Indian garment in whichever possible way I can, because as actors, we do have a very important, and we make a lot of impact on the way they think and the way they dress.
And what goes hand in hand with that is your personal touch in storytelling, right? Like, how do you express yourself through your fashion? How do you tell your story in the way you dress?
Well, I'm a Gemini, So
Me too.
you are, sir. So every time we wake up in the morning, we feel we've got different moods, and we're different people every day. And I think the one way to express ourselves is through what we wear. I feel like anybody that you see with whatever they wear, we can tell who they are as people, right? It's one form of expression. When we go through history as well, we can see what's happening culturally, historically, politically, what's happening at that point in time, whether we look at the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we know through fashion, through what people wore, we can tell what the mindset of society and people were at that time. So fashion has a huge part to play in people's mindsets, and we can actually define eras through what people have worn.
So how do you tap into this very fact of knowing that fashion is an expression of what's happening culturally in the present moment? How do you tap into that as an entrepreneur? Because of course you have your own fashion label, you have strategy behind Bhane, veg, non-veg, reason of course. So how do you pool in all your knowledge and your resources into being an entrepreneur in the fashion space?
So, honestly, I can't take credit for veg, non-veg and Bhane, even though I'm very heavily involved with my husband's company. He started Bhane because his family, our family basically, we have an export house. And he said that the best quality things were actually going out of India. Like I said, we make a lot in India for a lot of big brands abroad. And he had a lot of, he saw in his office, there were a lot of students coming in, and they didn't have access to the same clothes that they were designing. And he said that, I want a brand that's made in India, designed by Indians, that has the same level of quality that can be accessed at at a reasonable price point. And he started Bhane. Bhane means the rising sun. It means a new day. And he said that this is a new day for fashion, new day for Indians. And that's why he started Bhane. And the whole point of Bhane is for these clothes are specifically made to be comfortable, fashionable, for young creatives and for young people who go to work. And they are fashionable, but at the same time, they're simple. And it's a beautiful brand, and because of that, it does very well. Now, Veg Non-Veg was started by my husband and his partner Abhineet. And they both it's called Veg Non-Veg because one of them is vegetarian, one of them is not. And it's a very typical Indian thing. You see there's a red spot and a green spot. You only see on Indian food. You see, okay, agar laal hai to isme kuch non-vegetarian hai, agar green hai to isme ye vegetarian hai. And that's what the name is. It also defines something super Indian. My husband he hates the term, but he's always been a sneakerhead since he was younger. And I think this whole sneaker explosion had not happened in India till they started this veg non-veg brand. And again, I think historically, I'll explain to you the reason both these brands, including Reason, my sister and my brand, the success of these brands lies in the fact that they are brands that we did because we are passionate about what we believe in. So anybody who starts anything, like I had somebody ask me a question outside and they were like, what should you invest in? You should only invest in things that you believe in, that you understand, and that you can see the longevity of. There's a lot of trends right now to invest in startups and all, but you don't understand why you're investing in these startups. My experience in whatever brands that we've invested in that have done well are because we've believed in it and we've understood it. So, yeah.
Can you share actually anything about what it's like to be an entrepreneur in the fashion industry?
Fashion, even during retail as an industry, even through COVID, actually did super well through, the lockdown and stuff like that, because there's a instant gratification when it comes from buying a lipstick or buying a pair of shoes or buying a scarf or buying a handbag, whether you're using it or not. There's instant gratification because there's something beautiful. You worked hard. Like I know that if I worked hard or have done an event, I want to go and buy like maybe, You know, I want to buy a new lipstick. I mean, or I want to go buy a pair of shoes. You know, you want to gift yourself that. You want to, I don't know about, I feel like even men have started doing that these days, and that's why my husband's veg non-veg is working so well. Not that girls are not buying those sneakers, but, you know, women and men like to kind of reward themselves when they work hard through retail. And that will always be there. Yeah.
There have been some amazing insights shared through the event today, and what one of the speakers was saying is actually how in India, when it comes to online retail, it's men who consist of the biggest part of the spending, which is amazing.
As women, we like to try things on, and we like to feel things. You know, I feel like I can understand why men find, because men know कि this is my size, ये पैंट मुझ पे अच्छा लगता है, ये शर्ट मेरे पे अच्छा लगता है, इसके 4-5 कलर हम ले लेते हैं. As women, we are more experimental, right? And we are, as Indians, we are not as used to online as internationally. We are like a few steps behind as what's happening internationally in terms of online, you know, as online consumers. But I feel like we are getting there, and I think women will also start buying quite quickly online, especially if returns become easier. It's not as easy to return in India as it is internationally right now. Yeah.
And what role do you think sustainability and ethical sourcing and just sort of an ethical approach to production is going to play in the success of a fashion brand?
You know, there are three things. Again, you know, this is a question that was asked by a team to me outside, and they were like, what are the three trends that you think are going to have longevity? And I said there are three trends in India that are going to have longevity. One is sustainability, second is made in India, and the third is anything that is got like textiles, so it's heritage. You know, textiles, embroidery, you know, things that have historical value. You know, that can be, that also comes into sustainability, because you want to, you know, like when I decided that I wanted Anuradha Vakil to make my wedding outfit, I knew I wanted it to be an heirloom that I could give down. And I feel the younger generation, my generation and the generation below me, believe a lot in that. They believe in like rebuying, reselling, you know, buying older things. We don't need everything new. I've been buying vintage since I was 16 or 17 years old. I don't always like to buy new things. I think fast fashion is there, but like you buy basics from there, but like the special pieces you want to save up for and buy, you know.
You know, when you talk about all your experience with fashion, it's very clear that your connection with India and the Indian aesthetic is very strong. How do you keep that when you say are a brand ambassador for large-scale brands, Indian or international? How do you keep your essence and your kind of personal touch alive?
You know, for me, like, nobody can deny that I'm very, very Indian. I feel like I'm very proud to be Indian, and I have a lot of passion for everything that is Indian, especially like Indian clothes, Indian beauty. You know, I love keeping my hair long. I love wearing kajal in my eyes. You know, I love wearing saris. I've always have. I love wearing Indian clothes. You know, I feel more feminine when I am in Indian clothes. So I think when I'm trying to express myself, whether it's on an international red carpet or whether it's like, you know, an ad or it's anything, I try to represent that part of me, which is so Indian on that platform.
And you know, you touched upon the role that you perhaps play when it comes to looking at investments in the fashion arena and what it takes really to think about investments, right? So can you share something about your experience with investing or maybe mentoring as well in the fashion space?
So, you know, I think we've seen a trend where there are very big companies that are investing in fashion brands in India. So the only reason they would invest in these fashion brands is because they see a future and they see that they're going to get good returns. And so it's always safe to invest in a brand, a fashion brand, that you feel or that you believe you love and you like and you can wear. And I don't have to say this to you. I think the Ambanis and the Birlas are doing that anyways. You know, they're investing, they have these big, big brands that they're investing in, whether it's Reliance or whether it's the Birlas, they're investing in amazing brands that we have in India. And that is only because, you know, and so when I see that, I feel very encouraged for our Indian brands. And that's amazing. And so we should invest and we should support our own brands and wear them with pride.
Do you mentor any of these brands, or do you have an experience with really kind of being a guide? Because
I don't know if I'm a guide, but I think I play muse to them. And I think that really helps them, you know, as actors, you know, whether it's me or whether it's any of my colleagues. When we wear them, I think, and when we collaborate with them, especially if I'm like, okay, this works on me, this doesn't work on me, that's a collaboration. So I don't know about mentoring, but I know for sure when I collaborate with them, it helps. Yeah.
It works, definitely. Any favorite collaboration or favorite project that you have that you could share with us?
You know, there are two designers that I work very closely with. One is Abu Sandeep, and the other one is Anamika Khanna. Abu Sandeep is, you know, was the first person to dress me for a red carpet for my Savaria trailer launch, which I will always be grateful for. And, you know, they worked on Veer Day Wedding. They've dressed me countless times, and I've collaborated with them on multiple times where my sister styled me. Anamika's actually, I actually did my own clothes for multiple films, including the first project she worked with me for was Delhi 6. So it might not look like Anamika Khanna, but she has actually designed every garment that I've worn in that film. And so that aesthetic, which I think of that Delhi girl from Delhi Che, from Chandni Chowk, was actually, which became very, very, became very trendy to wear that bandana and to wear the silver jewelry and to wear those short kurtas, was created by Anamika and I. And I think that collaboration was extremely successful.
How does that feel when you do something in your films, in your passion projects, and it's just suddenly the nation picks it up as a trend?
You know, what was really funny actually was in Prem Ratan Dhan Payo, which a film that actually reached various interiors of India, which is one of my films that worked very, very well. Anamika again had done all my clothes that I wore. Again, I styled myself in the film, so the Western wear was all things that I picked up, but all my Indian wear was designed by Anamika Khanna. And I remember going to a couple of weddings, and I see a lot of girls wearing the same clothes. And I thought that was wonderful, you know. And I was like, that is the power of cinema. And I never understood it because, you know, Surajji told me, you know, there was this green sari that Madhuri Dixit had worn in one of his films. And I remember he's saying that, wo bahut chali, and ye lilac sari and this yellow sari worked really well that, you know, this one had worn, is Amrita had worn. So he was like, these are the colors that I want, and you see it will work in. And then when I was going through, you know, at that age, I was seeing a lot of my friends were getting married, you know, you're in your late 20s, and a lot of your friends are getting married at that time. And I was going and I was seeing a lot of them wearing these same Anamikas, and I found that so amazing, and I felt so happy and proud.
Sonam, you're so humble and even even really an international icon like you to say that it's like a wow moment to see.
So I can't tell you, it makes me so happy. I cannot tell you when someone does that. It makes me really happy.
Thank you. Well, I think you have a flight to catch, so we will, there's a lot more we'd love to talk about, but just on a closing note, you know, we're here today at the Fashion and Apparel Innovation Summit after all, and we have an audience full of fashion entrepreneurs or people deeply connected to the fashion industry in various aspects. So any few top tips or takeaways that you have for the audience here today when it comes to the future of the fashion industry in India?
You know, I feel, like I said, let's invest in our own brands. Let's support our own Indian brands. We have a very rich heritage of textiles, embroidery, craftsmanship that we should be very, very proud of. And, you know, from any big brand, whether it's a French brand, an Italian brand, an English brand, an American brand, 90% of it is all made in India. So, you know, we should kind of be proud of where we come from and what we wear. And I feel like we shouldn't be as West obsessed. So that is the one thing that I would say, and that's the one thing that's actually held me in good stead with the fashion industry in India.
Thank you so much, Sonam. Been
Thank
an
you so much.
absolute pleasure. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.